You're watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.
Hey everyone, Jim Fitzpatrick. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. Honesty at the office. You know, it sounds simple, but for many leaders, it's a fine line to walk. So how do we get it right? Joining us now is Kim Scott, who's the author of New York Times and Wall Street Journal bestseller, Radical Candor. Be a kick-ass boss without losing your humanity. And that's underlying humanity, right? We all get crazy. But and her newest book, titled Radical Respect, Kim's career includes leadership roles at Google and Apple, where she helped develop a class on how to be a good boss. Kim was a CEO coach at Dropbox, Qualtrics, Twitter, and other tech companies, and led AdSense and YouTube and DoubleClick teams at Google. So wow, when do you sleep, Kim? This is incredible. You've had an incredible career. Congratulations on all your success, and we're really looking forward to today's conversation.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be talking with you today.
Sure. So can you explain the concept of radical candor and how it is different from other leadership styles?
Yes. So radical candor is a leadership style where you care personally and you challenge directly at the same time. And I think it's easiest to understand what radical candor is by explaining what it is not. Okay. So sometimes we remember to challenge directly, but we forget to show we care personally. And that is what I call obnoxious aggression. And obnoxious aggression is a terrible leadership style. Right. It hurts other people, but it's also inefficient. Because if I'm a jerk to you, you're likely to go into fight or flight mode. Right. And then you literally, physically cannot hear what I'm saying, so I'm wasting my breath. There's another problem with obnoxious aggression, though, which is that most people really don't want to be jerks. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but for me, when I realize I've been a jerk, it's not my instinct to move up on the care personally dimension of radical candor. Instead, I'm tempted to go the wrong way on challenge directly. And then I wind up in the worst place of all, manipulative insincerity. That's what happens when you're neither caring nor challenging. Sure. Manipulative, if obnoxious aggression is front stabbing, manipulative insincerity is backstabbing. And these two behaviors, manipulative insincerity and obnoxious aggression, these are the behaviors that we tend to talk about when things go wrong at work, because that's where the drama is. But the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of us make the vast majority of our mistakes when we actually do remember to show that we care personally, because most real people, not social media people, but people in real life are actually pretty nice people. So we do remember to show that we care personally, but we're so worried about not hurting someone's feelings or not offending them that we fail to tell them something they'd be better off knowing in the long run. And that is what I call ruinous empathy. So that's the sort of short version of radical candor right there, what it is and what it's not.
That's right. And it was a perfect description. How can leaders ensure they're offering constructive feedback without being detached or harsh?
Yeah. So first of all, you can't be sure that what you're saying is going to be interpreted in a constructive way. So just let go of that. One of the things that does not exist in the world is emotional Novocaine. So I think unfortunately. Right. So I think that one of the really important things to do as a leader is to remember to start by soliciting feedback. Don't dish it out before you prove you can take it. And once you understand what's going on for your direct reports, you're going to be much more likely to give feedback in a way that will be interpreted well, because you've led by example. You've solicited feedback and you've reacted well to it. And then when it comes time to giving feedback, and remember, feedback is both praise and criticism. Radical candor is not all about criticism. Like, the art of leadership is to paint a picture of what's possible. And praise is a better tool for that than criticism. Yeah. But when it comes time to giving either praise or criticism, you got to remember to gauge how what you're saying is landing. Because sometimes it'll land, most of the time actually, it'll probably land reasonably well. It'll be no big deal. And the person will say, oh, thank you for letting me know. I'll do more of that if you're praising them, or I'll do less of that if you're offering criticism. But sometimes the person will be sad, or they'll be mad, or they'll just brush you off. And so that's where you've got to go back to these two core elements of radical candor. If the person is sad or mad, you want to move up on the care personally dimension. So you want to take an extra beat to be present for those emotions, which is hard because it's hard to be present when someone else is sad.
That's right.
But just let the person know that you care about them, that you're telling them this to help them do better.
Sure.
What about when the person is mad? Like if you start yelling at me right now, I'm going to be tempted to get mad back, to go the wrong way.
Right.
It's hard to care about someone who's yelling at you.
Sure.
So I get mad back, I start yelling at you, and now I'm in obnoxious aggression. So the right thing to do is instead to take an extra beat and to show you that I care, even though you're yelling at me, for me to show you that I care about you. And that's pretty hard to care about someone who's yelling at you. So what I try to do in those moments is to get curious, not furious. Like, why is he so mad? Like, what could I do to help get things back on track?
Yeah.
So that's what to do about sad or mad. You got to move up on care personally.
Yep.
What if the person brushes you off? You've worked up your courage to tell the person this thing, and they're just like, oh, it doesn't matter. It's no big deal.
Right.
This is your cue to move out further than you may be comfortable going on the challenge directly dimension. You've got to say it again, even more clearly. And that feels mean. But remember, it's not mean if it's clear.
What are some practical tips for leaders to develop a culture of trust? And this is a whole nother show, I know,
Yes.
but maybe hit just some of the high points.
Yeah, I think the most important thing that leaders can do to build a culture of trust is to solicit feedback and to reward the candor when they get it. So there's 4 steps.
Okay.
First step is to make sure that you have a good question. The question I like to ask is, what could I do or stop doing that would make it easier to work with me?
Okay.
But do not write down my question, because if everybody watching this is trying to sound like Kim Scott and not like themselves, people will not believe they want the answer.
Right.
So figure out what's the question that sounds like you and write it down.
Okay.
Write down that question. Next, your next step is to make sure that once you get an answer to that question, that you're listening with the intent to understand, not to respond.
Gotcha.
Because it's so tempting once you get an answer to get defensive.
That's right.
And that doesn't mean you're shut down to feedback. It just means you're human.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're asking a follow-up question, to make sure you truly understand what this person is trying to tell you. You also want to make sure that you're embracing the discomfort, because even though you just solicited feedback, this other person really doesn't want to give it to you. So close your mouth, count to 6. Only made it to 2 just there. We were running out of time. So 6 seconds is a really long time.
Yeah.
And last but not least, you got to make sure that you reward the candor when you get it. Because a person, especially a person who works for you, if they offer you some criticism, they're taking a big risk.
Yeah.
And if we want them to ever do it again, we've got to reward that risk richly. And so if you agree with the feedback, fix the problem.
Right.
Saying thank you for the feedback is not enough of a reward. And if you disagree with the feedback, offer a respectful explanation of why. It's so tempting to fear that a disagreement is going to pose a risk to our relationships, but actually so many of the best relationships I've had in my career have happened as a result of a good, respectful disagreement.
Yeah.
But try, if you're the boss, not to demand that the person do it your way. The more you can listen, challenge, commit in doing it their way, even though you disagree, the better. I worked with a guy named Russ Laraway, who wrote a great book, When They Win, You Win. And what Russ would say to his team is, if all we have are opinions, let's go with yours. If we have data, let's do what the data says.
Sure,
but the
sure.
more you can defer to the opinions of your direct reports, the more you build trust with them.
And you have instant buy-in on whatever that project is. And then
exactly.
And then with that comes their responsibility to see that through as a success.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
It was their
right.
idea.
Yeah, it was their idea.
That's right.
And maybe you're wrong.
Yeah. That's right. I don't think I'm wrong, but I know what you mean. It's probably
other leaders, not you.
That's right. That's your next book, The Leader That's Never Wrong by Jim Fitzpatrick. That's right. So,
I love that.
And again, I know I could sit here all day because I love this topic and you're an expert in it. But let me ask you about your new book called Radical Respect. Kind of give us the high points on that. What's the impetus behind that?
Yeah. So respect the kind of radical respect that I'm talking about is not the respect that one has to earn, but there's two definitions of respect, which is confusing. But the one that I'm talking about is the unconditional regard that we owe each other for our shared humanity when we're working together. That is a birthright. It's not something one has to earn.
Right.
It's that kind of basic respect. And that kind of basic respect is essential for radical candor to work. And so what gets in the way of that kind of unconditional regard for our shared humanity? I mean, a million things, but I'm going to boil it down to three: bias, prejudice, and bullying. And I think one of the problems with bias, prejudice, and bullying is that we tend to conflate them. We tend to treat those three very different things as though they're the same thing.
Yeah.
And then the problem can feel monolithic and insoluble. So what do you do with a hard problem? You break it down into its component parts. So this is what I've done. Bias is not meaning it. It's unconscious. I'm talking about unconscious bias, really. Prejudice is meaning it. Prejudice is a very consciously held belief, usually incorporating some kind of unfair and inaccurate stereotype. And finally, bullying is just being mean. It's not about a belief, conscious or unconscious. And if we separate those things out, then we know how to respond to each one differently, whether we're the upstander or the leader in the situation.
Right. Well, that in and of itself is definitely worth this read. And so we're going to make it very easy for the people that are watching this video right here. There's a link right below that you're just a click away right now from getting the book, which I highly recommend you do, Radical Candor. I know it will help you not just in your professional life, but also your personal life. So I want to thank you, Kim Scott, author, founder of the company Radical Candor. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. Very much appreciate it.
Thank you. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching Inside Automotive with Jim Fitzpatrick.